Okay, so here we are. Now, the reason it's two slides like this is what I mentioned earlier, and I'll drill down. If you have a client and it's, I wish I could have had all the ducks lined up to be comfortable to do this presentation 2 months earlier, because we're already in March. We're already having some companies filing tax returns. But under the CARES Act, Secure Act, we can, with an ESOP on this, not the leverage ESOP, it doesn't matter. But on this particular ESOP, we can go back into last year for the guy, or the guy or girl, whoever owns the business, for the business owner. And if their payroll's $20 million, we can do a $5 million deduction for last year with paper, with stock certificates. That's huge, because that's never been the situation before. I mean, in the past, defined benefit plans had up until you file taxes, but that just gives you time to engage the actuarial guy to do the study to tell you what your new maximum funded required contribution is going to be of cash into that pension plan. But this is huge, and if you can get the eyes of the attorney or the business owner, the CPA especially, the CPA can look like a hero by you introducing this concept to them, and where they were getting ready to recommend buying 16 new trucks for 179 depreciation values. They don't have to do that. I mean, we've literally walked in on a client that has a construction company. He says, I have 5 more trucks than I need now. I don't need any more 6,000-pound vehicles that I do a 179 deduction for. But what else can I do? This is a gift from Congress. And so that's why we tried to get this meeting as early as we could. And we just couldn't pull it off any earlier, because I was still getting tax verifications from different people to know that we weren't saying something we couldn't say. And so we can't do anything captive retroactive, because, well, one, it takes a while to get a captive, because there's a lot of underwriting and risk management stuff involved, and it's a cash contribution. So they're talking about retirement plans, and with the ability to do a tax deduction for last year is huge, because now all of a sudden, whether it's a $1 million deduction or a $10 million deduction, you've got that money right now that they don't have to pay taxes on now. So what we're trying to do with one company is we're talking about putting $2.5 million of stock into last year's ESOP, and then immediately taking that $2.5 million that we're taking away from the profit they have to pay and putting that in the captive. So we're funding the captive with the TERC, the tax exempt retained capital, created by last year's deduction that we're doing now. So it's a real boon to opportunities.
Now, if I may, Kelly, I interrupt you because I want to get everybody's attention, because when we talked about this like about 2 or 3 weeks ago, you said this is the equivalent of asking a widow, how much life insurance do you want on your deceased spouse? You know, because you're able to go back and create a deduction that you otherwise wouldn't be able to create, and capitalize on it today, and and keep that benefit, and essentially creating a deduction, because you're just issuing the stock paper to contribute. And you mentioned this before. This is not a cash tax deduction. This is a tax code deduction.
Yeah, it's code versus checks versus cash. And I mean, right now I've got a handful. Huh?
CPAs get this. I was say when the CPA gets this, make sure you're on Zoom and look at their face when they get it. It's like, you'll know they've never done this before or seen it, and they get it. They go, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. So
I'm getting comments. Barry Rutton says this is great stuff. And another question is, so an amended return is filed for 2021.
Well, what we're doing now is we're filed yet. So. Yeah, we're saying file an extension. I mean, put it off till June. I mean, because it'll take a couple of weeks to get everything put together. But yeah, if with the company we're doing down near San Diego, it's actually right. It's just north of the border from Tijuana. They have a high growth situation, but what we're doing is we're going to give them 2.5 for last year, fund the captive for this year, and then do the 2.5 again, they're gonna have a $7+ million deduction like within 90 days. And so their whole deduction for the 2 years of the business is $7.5 million. And it was all initiated by a paper deduction retroactively into last year. And so, and if you roll it forward, the impact is incredible. So from 22 and beyond, we kept the paper transaction in last year. So it kind of roughly gives them a $300,000 to mess with on top of funding the captive this year. So they've got the money from the tax savings or the profit offset from last year to go into the captive for this year. And then we're going to start making their stock contributions a little larger to max, go along with their growth. And they're looking at 5 years out, maybe 7 years. But in that time period, we're going to save them like $20 million. It's amazing. Let's go to the next slide.